Biofuels are a critical part of the solution. You know, the problem maybe is thinking about biofuels as the entire solution. America's addicted to oil. The president told us so. Where are we going to get a barrel of oil?
The new sustainable barrel. Here's how we might fill it. Sustainable biofuels like algae are great. Another part of the barrel could come from biomass. Biomass is any organic material. Trees, garbage, yard clippings, agricultural industrial waste, wood chips, sawdust, paper products, lumber scraps.
And my personal favorite, used cooking oil.
This is the start of a forest. It is also the start of recovery from the dependency on foreign oil.
Another form of biomass are energy crops like wood.
Since the most dense form of biomass comes from wood, what if there was a faster way to grow trees?
Typical tree is going to grow to maturity in 10 to 15, 20, even 30 years. The megaflora tree that we're planting will grow to full maturity within 3 years. And when you cut it down, it'll regrow from its own stump to another full-size tree in 3 years again. We're growing a tree that captures carbon. We're growing a tree that can be used for biomass, and we can use that biomass to create biofuels. Well, the concept is to plant trees in a plantation like we're seeing here, but then to also intercrop, meaning to plant an oilseed crop in between the rows of trees. And by doing that, we'll have the trees to harvest as biomass and use to produce bioalcohols. We'll also have the oilseed that we can harvest to produce biodiesel. The trees were initially developed to remediate soils, meaning to take contaminants out of the soils. There's a lot of land that can't be planted right now across the country that is contaminated with selenium, boron, various different kinds of heavy metals. And a lot of that's considered what we'd call marginal land. The trees and the oilseed crop we're dealing with clean that soil up and allow it to be used for food crops again. There are many, many tracts of land in California as well as across the country and in other countries where we can use the megaflora tree and produce significant volumes of biofuels to help our future.
According to the Department of Energy, America could get 20% of its electricity from wind power.
We now see a number of European countries that have literally replaced coal and are thinking about replacing nuclear with wind power.
To have wind power provide 100% of America's electricity would take several 100,000 turbines. Now, if you were to take all those towers and hypothetically put them all together into one space, that would be less than one single large coal strip mine in Wyoming.
We have enough harnessable wind energy in North Dakota, Montana, and Texas alone to power all the energy needs of our country.
I did a calculation a few years ago that if we had built wind turbines with the amount of money that we put into fighting the Iraqi war, that we would be getting more energy from wind power today than we ever got in oil from Iraq.
If you get 20% of our electric energy from wind, and it's going to create over 500,000 high-paying jobs for the economy, including many rural areas.
There are 80,000 parts in every wind turbine. This is big engineering. You can imagine like Boeing. Those are the jobs of the future. You can put Detroit back to work. Tell them, stop making SUVs, start making wind turbines. You can save the world and put your city back to work.
Enough solar energy falls on the surface of the planet in less than an hour to meet humankind's entire energy needs for a full year.
With only 7% of our existing urban area that's already developed, we can install solar photovoltaics to provide 100% of America's electricity requirements.
Having solar hasn't changed my life. I use the same amount of electricity. It makes me feel good, that's all. I feel good having solar power. It just sits there and makes electricity for me, and I can use as much as I want. And the stuff I don't use goes to other people.
So if you put a solar panel on the roof of your home, you ought to be able to sell that excess back to the grid and get market rates. And if you did that, all of a sudden, every American would be an energy entrepreneur, and every household would become a power plant. And think of what that does to our country. It makes every American richer.
The next part of the barrel should come from rethinking our vehicles.
The question to ask is, of the next billion cars we ship in the next 15 years on this planet, what technology can get into 500 million to 800 million of those cars to really make a difference?
Plug-in hybrid is a normal Prius that has an added battery pack and a plug. We can drive on electricity instead of gas. The sun can beat down on solar panels, and the solar panels can be connected to the grid, and the grid can charge the car.
With a plug-in hybrid, you could reduce our petroleum use by 80%. And that's even if the plug-in hybrid ran on conventional fuel. And of course, if you run it on biodiesel or ethanol, then you essentially knock out petroleum use.
Israel's going to be off of gasoline within 3 years. You get 120 miles on a charge. They're very fast cars. If you're going to go more than 120 miles, you can pull into any gas station. They'll slide out the exhausted battery and slide in a fresh one. There's 30 other nations that are now lined up to install these systems. This is going to happen faster than anybody imagined.
What's better for the environment than a green car? No car.
My vote would be a radically different public transportation system in every major city in America.
There's no reason over the next 20 years that we couldn't revitalize our urban environments to make them bicycle, pedestrian, and transit friendly.
Our air would become more breathable. We'd have lower level of toxicity. So you'd have a much more effective city. Whenever we put in a rail line, overnight the rail line ridership increased by 60,000 in one day. And that gives people choices.
But even with all these things, maybe the answer is to find a way to just need less energy.
Something like 20 or 30% of our energy use goes into the residential sector, and that's just extraordinarily wasteful.
It doesn't matter whether you're an individual that lives in a big home or an individual that lives in an apartment or a condo. There are lots of things you can do to take that first step. And I promise, when you take that first step, you take another step. And you start off walking, but almost everybody starts running in the end because it's contagious, and you realize that you're doing great for the economy, great for yourself, your own pocketbook, but you're doing great for the Earth's resources and for the future generations that have to use them.
Conservation and efficiency is the cleanest, quickest, and cheapest way to ease our addiction to oil.
The question I get asked all the time, is it too late? What can I do? It's not solely about biodiesel. It's not solely all about the answers. It's about each person having a consciousness that the way we live affects the next person, and it affects our community, it affects our country, and ultimately affects the planet.
We can live a better life and not a more expensive life if all we do is care.
The message is about compassion. It doesn't matter if you're talking about being compassionate to a person or being compassionate to the planet.
I think what's stopping a lot of people, or companies also, from doing this, as well as governments, is they're waiting for the masses to do it and they'll join in. But what they forget about is the masses is made up of individuals. And until the individuals make the change, you don't have the masses.
The future for the country is a new alliance where you have the best of business, the real new entrepreneurs with the new technologies, the best of labor that wants to be a part of rebuilding the economy, all standing together saying, listen, we are tired of the military petroleum complex running the country into the ground. We want a green future for this country. We want to create a green wave that can lift all boats. That's the future.
I was walking with my daughter on the beach. We happened to see plastics all over the place. And my daughter says, Dad, they're teaching me in school that plastics are destroying our planet. She goes, why don't you do something about it? And I said, you know what? Why not? 2.5 years later, we developed an additive, breaks down plastics to CO2, H2O, biomass, that will be eaten by microorganisms. Do you realize there's actually 46,000 pieces of plastic floating in every square mile on the ocean? We are using 2 million bags per minute. Only 1% of that is ever recycled. The rest is floating around somewhere. It's in the landfills, and it doesn't break down. It just lasts and lasts and lasts. Guys, how you doing today? Isn't it sad that these plastic bags, they never break down? Wouldn't it make sense to use a plastic bag that will biodegrade?
My new bags are 52 by 64.
We can make any size you want.
And you can imagine how much petroleum base is in there.
This is the
Give
future.
me a card. I'm the beach supervisor, so I'll give you a call.
Hey, it's a pleasure talking. I got a little dirty hands,
That's
but
all right.
we don't mind. We're both in the garbage business, right, brother?
A green-collar job is basically a blue-collar job that's been upgraded to better respect the environment. All of the jobs that actually improve environmental health and pay well, those are green-collar jobs.
Filling the new sustainable barrel will be a challenge. So who's going to lead the way?
New York City puts up about 1% of the global warming gases in the country, and we've got to bring that number down. And if we do that, we can actually have a practical impact. And what I'm doing with my bill would be to mandate that all fuel oil in New York City, all fuel oil, and we have over 1 million homes using fuel oil in New York City, not to mention the commercial uses, government uses, but all uses of fuel oil in New York City will contain 20% bio by 2013.
We go around the city and we collect the used cooking oil and turn it into clean-burning, renewable biodiesel fuel.
If you can make a community a better place, and you start with one place, it multiplies.
I just feel like a biodiesel man, you know. I need my cape, you know, and I can just fly around with the meshes on my back and just tell everyone, come on, let's save this earth. You know, let's get with this program.